Nancy Green with Film Critique. And yeah, this was a really interesting documentary to me because I didn't know as much about him. I knew about him, I knew his music and things like that, but there were so many intricacies in what he was going through and how he dealt with his issues. And I was wondering, do you see that this is maybe kind of a trend in the industry? Because there seem to be a lot of very talented young musicians who they're dying young, and I found that it was so just disturbing the way that he seemed to kind of talk about that a lot, talk about feel like he was going to die. So can you go into that a bit more?
It's the worst kind of trend if it is a trend. And it's just, I don't even know what to call it. It's a terrible thing. And it's the sort of thing that a lot of people, music industry, media, individuals, etc., have kind of become a bit numb to because it sort of keeps happening. And it's also something that, for one reason or another, like he talked about not expecting to be around long. The idea of uh, what's a 27 club? We're not gonna make it past 21. And so I think that it's just a hard thing. It's a hard thing. You've got somebody who was 19 and 20 years old throughout the film who has all the access in the world, like all the access in the world. And it's just a lot to be able to figure out how to deal with stuff. And Polo G talks about it at the end of the film. It's like, before we're struggling to be able to pay for stuff. Now you can get as much as you want, basically. And how do you deal with that? Because your problems don't go away. You still have problems. You just now have unlimited access to everything. And so there's no answer. There's no easy answer. It's just really hard. And I think that when anybody sees the signs, we should do as much as we can to support the individuals. I think ultimately people are going to make their own decisions, but creating a support structure around it and understanding that these things are possible and trying to protect against them as much as a record company can or anybody, I think it's important, because we can't say that, oh man, I never thought something like this could happen. No, there are plenty of people who have passed away. And so I think that we can't just turn a blind eye.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, what do you think that his impact will be on future generations of musicians? And do you think that future generations, musicians, will maybe take into consideration the things that happen to him when they're going on their own path in music?
So his impact musically is already being felt quite a bit. And there are dozens of artists who are trying to essentially emulate the Juice WRLD sound, and either the sound or the feel or the emotion. And I think he, in many ways, ushered in being able to be vulnerable with the type of music that he was making. And there are other people who follow in his footsteps. And I think that it's great. It's great to be able to actually see people who look like us talk about these things and not pretend like it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that in many ways, it's a cautionary tale. And hopefully, I was like, how many fucking cautionary tales do you need? And so, like, this sort of thing can't keep happening. And so we've seen it. we're seeing it up close, and hopefully we take the hard lessons.
This question is, I wanted to know, do you think that things might have turned out differently for him or would turn out differently for other artists like him if they had approached, or if it was possible to approach being in the music industry differently without maybe some of the big concerts or huge entourage, not people that he wanted around him, but the extra people that kind of get put there maybe. That was something that I was curious about in watching, because in the documentary it talks about how he just kind of, he didn't know initially that you could just go into a studio and record music. He thought someone had to put you there, but he did that himself, and that's kind of how his career came about. So do you think it would have been differently if he had been able to kind of do things more in that way than going about the traditional music route?
I think that it's complex because I think there is a certain level of responsibility for people around young artists to support them and for there to be an infrastructure, given that we know these types of things can happen. That said, Juice was going to do whatever he wanted to do. And so it is not a straightforward thing. And there was a time where G Money was somebody who was very important to Juice. And he was the person who found him. He was the person he looked at like a big brother. And at some point, G Money got pushed out because he was pushing too much. And that made everybody else who was around him think, well, if G Money can get pushed out, I mean, I can't say shit. And so it's a weird dynamic that there's no easy answer for. And so it's, again, Juice is going to do whatever he was going to do, but I still think that there is a responsibility for people who are older and more experienced to create guardrails and infrastructure as much as possible.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
This was a very good documentary. I thought it was done differently without having a lot of interviews in between, but I really liked that, and sort of the conclusion at the end where everyone was weighing in. Yeah, it was very, very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.